Okay, picture this. It's 6:15 on the morning of June 6th, 1944. The moon is just catching the waters of the Cebu Passage in the Philippines, barely 6 miles out from Tawi-Tawi. Now, Tawi-Tawi isn't just a random harbor. At this point in the war, it's the largest Japanese naval anchorage left in the entire region. We're talking 9 carriers, 5 battleships, cruisers, and literally dozens of destroyers. And sitting right there, practically on their front porch, is the USS Harder. It's an American submarine commanded by a 37-year-old on his 5th war patrol. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to unpack one of the most intense, nerve-wracking chapters of naval history, pulling straight from the historical records to show you how a single, solitary submarine managed to alter the entire course of the Pacific War. So let's just dive right in. The man looking through the periscope of the USS Harder is Commander Samuel Dealey. And by this point, he's already sent 18 enemy ships to the ocean floor. But Dealey isn't out here hunting slow-moving cargo ships. He actually lobbied for this highly dangerous assignment specifically to go hunt the hunters. To really understand how one sub could trigger a massive naval collapse, you have to realize that what Dealey's about to do goes against literally every single instinct and rule of submarine warfare at the time. He's about to unleash a level of aggression so unprecedented that it sends shockwaves straight up to the very top of the Japanese Navy. To fully appreciate the sheer, crazy audacity of Dealey's plan, you've got to understand the brutal math of the ocean back then. 3-to-1. That's the ratio. A Japanese destroyer could outrun a submerged American submarine by 3-to-1. If a destroyer spotted you, you were entirely outmatched. Period. These ships were the apex predators of the Pacific, explicitly built and armed to hunt down submarines and crack them wide open. Because of that massive speed gap, engaging a destroyer on purpose, well, that was basically considered a suicide mission.
Section 1. The Submarine Survival Doctrine.
Right, so before April 1944, the standard doctrine for every submariner was absolute law. If a destroyer detects you, you dive deep, you run completely silent, and you just pray they lose contact before your batteries run out. Dealey played by those rules for 4 whole patrols. But intelligence showed that Japan was starting to face a severe destroyer shortage. And Dealey realized something huge. If he could sink their escorts, he could paralyze their entire fleet. So he essentially throws the rulebook out the window. Dealey's entirely new doctrine: point your stern directly at the threat, hold your nerve as they charge right at you, and attack. Just to ground this in reality and explain why Dealey's new idea terrified his own crew, consider these stats. Japanese sonar could track a sub from 3 miles out. Their depth charges were specifically designed to completely crush a submarine's pressure hull at 300 feet. Between December 1941 and March 1944, this whole predator-prey dynamic cost the Americans 19 submarines, 647 men killed, 0 survivors. So yeah, the fear of destroyers was incredibly well-founded.
Section 2. The down-the-throat shot.
Commander Dealey spent a lot of time meticulously analyzing this deadly game of cat and mouse. And he noticed that the Japanese destroyer doctrine, which relied on aggressive, high-speed ramming, actually had a fatal flaw. This observation led to what he called the down-the-throat shot. Now, the geometry here has to be absolutely flawless. Step 1, instead of running away, you point your stern directly at the charging warship. Step 2, you hold your position. You literally sit there watching a heavily armed ship charge at you at top speed, waiting for the range to close to exactly 1,500 yards. Step 3, you fire a spread of torpedoes straight down their throat. And finally, Step 4, you crash dive immediately. There are no complex angles to calculate here. It's just a straight line of pure, unadulterated nerve.
The really crazy part here is the razor-thin margin for error. When you fire those torpedoes, the combined closing speed of your weapons and that charging destroyer is 70 knots. Your time to target, a mere 18 seconds. If your timing is off by just a hair, or if the torpedoes miss, you are now perfectly positioned directly underneath a warship doing 35 knots, completely exposing your sub to a point-blank barrage of depth charges. It's basically an aquatic game of chicken with the highest possible stakes.
Section 3. Panic at Tawi-Tawi.
Dealey didn't just map this out on a chalkboard. He took the USS Harder right to the edge of the Tawi-Tawi anchorage and actually did it. The rampage kicks off on June 6th. A destroyer named Minisatsuki charges the Harder. Dealey holds his nerve, fires, and literally breaks the ship in half. The very next day, a second destroyer, the Hayanami, tries the exact same aggressive run. Dealey waits for that 1,500-yard mark, fires, and sinks her in under 60 seconds. On June 9th, he takes down the Tanakaze. By June 10th, Dealey is exhausted and out of torpedoes, but he still manages a down-the-throat shot against a force destroyer charging at 35 knots, vaporizing it from just 900 yards away. 4 destroyers eliminated in 5 days, all using this incredibly dangerous geometry.
As you might guess, the Japanese High Command was utterly bewildered. I mean, they're watching their elite destroyers steam out of their most secure anchorage just 6 miles away and vanish into fiery explosions. Admiral Soemu Toyota, the commander-in-chief of the combined fleet, gets these reports and starts to panic. He rationally concludes there is no way one submarine is doing this. Toyota becomes absolutely convinced he's surrounded by a massive, highly coordinated American wolf pack.
Section 4. A strategic masterstroke.
That localized panic, it triggers a massive, cascading, strategic blunder. Because Admiral Toyota believes this giant wolf pack is out there slaughtering his crucial destroyers, he orders his entire fleet to abandon Tawi-Tawi and sort out 24 hours early on June 11th. But moving a fleet that size prematurely creates a total logistical nightmare. They end up leaving with incomplete fuel loads. Because of that, they're forced to slow down later for underway refueling, which completely wrecks their carefully planned schedule. By the time they finally engage the American forces, their formations are just entirely out of position.
And what happens when you arrive to a battle completely unready? The Battle of the Philippine Sea turns into an absolute disaster for Japan. In a single day, American forces destroy 376 Japanese aircraft and sink 3 carriers. Japan's naval air power is effectively wiped off the map, and it never recovers. And you have to remember, this colossal, sweeping victory happened in no small part because one rogue submarine commander made a Japanese admiral believe in an invisible enemy.
Section 5. The fatal calculation.
But, the reality of war is that even the most brilliant tactics have a shelf life. By August 1944, Dealey and the Harder are sent out on their 6th war patrol, heading back to the waters around the Philippines. Now remember, Dealey's down-the-throat tactic completely relied on the enemy being fast, aggressive, and unable to turn quickly. But on August 24th, Dealey runs into a Japanese frigate designated PB-102. Ironically, this was actually a captured American destroyer. Unlike those fleet destroyers charging in at 35 knots, this frigate approaches methodically, a very slow 15 knots. Dealey tries his signature maneuver, but the geometry is all wrong now. Because the frigate is moving so slowly, it has the time, and more importantly, the tight turning radius, to just evade the incoming torpedoes. For the very first time, Dealey's torpedoes miss, and now the frigate's captain knows exactly where the Harder is sitting. As Dealey orders an emergency crash dive, desperately trying to get below that 300-foot thermal layer to hide, the slow-moving frigate passes right overhead. It drops a methodical, completely devastating pattern of 15 depth charges into a tight 200-yard circle, all set to detonate at a shallow 150 feet. The 5th charge detonates directly over the Harder's conning tower, tearing the pressure hull wide open.
Section 6. Legacy of the USS Harder. A nearby American sub heard the massive implosion, and then just pure silence. The most aggressive submarine commander in the Pacific had finally met an enemy whose tactics perfectly countered his own. To truly grasp the weight of this sacrifice, we have to zoom out and look at the broader context of the war. A staggering 22% of the American submarine force in World War II was lost. Think about that. That's 52 submarines and over 3,500 men. It was literally the highest casualty rate of any branch in the American military. Dealey and his crew, they knew these stats intimately. They knew the immense danger every single time they submerged, but they still chose to innovate, to hunt, and to push the absolute limits of what a submarine could do.
Throughout his service, Commander Dealey was awarded an incredible 5 Navy Crosses. 5. On August 29, 1945, President Harry Truman posthumously awarded Dealey the Medal of Honor, which was presented to his widow. The citation specifically pointed to his actions during that unbelievable 5th War Patrol. It officially recognized how his gallantry and those terrifyingly aggressive tactics directly set the stage for the massive strategic victory at the Battle of the Philippine Sea. 79. That is the exact number of crew members who went down with Commander Dealey and the USS Harder on that fateful morning in August. Today, their tomb rests in 370 feet of water off the coast of Luzon, where an expedition finally located the submarine in 2024. 79 men who volunteered for a perilous job, pulled off a flawless string of impossible victories, and ultimately gave everything they had. Which leaves us with a lingering thought. Commander Dealey took a defensive, terrified submarine fleet and transformed it into a lethal hunting force. His calculated risks literally changed the doctrines of naval warfare and forced the collapse of a massive Japanese fleet. But, as the fate of the USS Harder proves, in the brutal math of war, even the most brilliant tacticians are sometimes just one slow-moving frigate away from tragedy. So how do we actually measure the true cost of a strategic masterpiece like that? It's a heavy question, and it's one that forces us to look past all the glorious battlefield victories and remember the 79 souls resting off the coast of Luzon. I really hope this explainer gave you a clear, engaging look into this incredible chapter of history.